Hey team, thanks for joining me. I won't take up much of your time as I know we're all super busy people. I do want to guide you though through the feedback response flow and show you how important this loop of communication is in ensuring that your front of house team and your guest experience is benefiting your business in the best way possible and that you're getting the most return from a financial perspective as well, but also from the general hospitality perspective of providing an epic service to your local community, which is, I'm sure, what you are aiming for and where you've gotten started in this process to begin with. So essentially the feedback response flow is a loop of communication between yourself, between the guest, and also between your front of house team. This open thread of communication, or what should be an open thread of communication, is what ensures you knowing exactly what's coming through from your front of house team, that they're communicating efficiently and effectively with you, that your guest is comfortable in communicating any feedback to you, that if there are guest complaints and issues that you need to deal with, that your front of house team are eloquent and empowered to do so themselves, that there are systems and procedures in place to enable that communication. And then for yourself to be on top of everything that's happening in your own venue. So it seems super simple, but communication is one of the most important things that we can be utilizing, one of our most important skills that we can be utilizing with all of our teams in our venues. However, with your front of house team, communication is exceptionally important because they are the gateway to your guests. Your team are essentially the messengers, so they receive feedback, they receive any complaints or issues. It generally comes through your servers, your bartenders, your wait staff, your front of house team, your hosts. These are the people in your venue who are getting the feedback from your guests. They will generally receive that feedback and then hopefully pass that on to you. So there are 3 pillars within the feedback response flow. There's your guests, there's your front of house team, and then there is yourself and your managers. So yourself as a restaurant owner or yourself as a restaurant manager, and then your management team. If there's a glitch in communication between any of these 3 pillars, it really causes a blockage in you getting the information and the data that you need in able to optimize your front of house service. So by getting communication, by getting that feedback from your guests on any aspect of service, that aspect of feedback is so important for you as a business to be able to grow and learn and adapt and change and be assessing what people love, what people don't love. We can look at sales figures through our POS system, and that's also an exceptional amount of data that we should be looking at on a regular basis. However, that personal touch, that communication via word, and that real feedback, that when your front of house team asks the guests how that menu item was or how their service has been that evening, or when you approach with that question, your guests are able to answer in a way that's not just a number that's coming through the POS system. Many years ago, I was working in a different industry. I was working in sales and marketing, and I took a little hiatus from hospitality in my early 20s, thinking that I was going to take a step out of the industry, but here we are now. Been back for many years since. But one thing I did learn, and I'll never forget, was we were working on a marketing project, and we were talking about walkers versus talkers, and how majority of people will walk away if they have an issue or a complaint rather than voice their issue or complaint and have it resolved. And that results in a negative connotation for your business because you are not able to rectify the issue. And then they walk out the door, they may never return, and they're going to tell maybe their friends and family about the negative experience that they've had with you. So when somebody voices their complaint to you or one of your team members, it's imperative that we nip it in the bud and we actually deal with it in the moment, and we're able to try and transform their experience before they step out of your venue. Because a lot of the time, once they've stepped out, and if they've worked up enough to send you an email or give you a call the next day, the issue is probably escalated. They've had more time to fester. They've had more time to think about it. It's made them a little bit more angry or frustrated. And then they've gone to the effort of then having to take their time the next day to contact you via email or phone. If you can deal with it in venue and add that personal touch and turn the story around, you are essentially going to have the best opportunity at, first of all, bringing them back into venue and bringing them into your repetitive client list, and also just giving them an epic experience. They're going to walk away from that thinking how professional and amazing were that team at dealing with an issue. Shit happens. We fuck up sometimes. We have a very human element part to our jobs. And unfortunately, as much as we want everything to be picture perfect, and as much as we do have systems and procedures in place, sometimes shit does happen. And we do fuck up. And in my opinion, and what has been proven to work for me, is that if we own it, and a lot of the time, if we're honest with our guests about what is happening, they don't need to know the specific details. Personally, I prefer to just own it, and I think that that action in itself is enough for most people to be able to identify with that, and then also have some compassion for you as the front of house server. So having compassion for whoever's delivering the message, because at the end of the day, if we are honest and we're open and we own our shit, people are going to relate to that, and people are at the very least going to respect that. And through respect, we create a little bit of trust, and then through trust, we can create a bond and loyalty and so on and so forth. So you can see where I'm going with this. It's a proven fact that repeat customers do spend more money than first timers in general. And you also have the aspect of them being repeat guests. So that's recurring venue walking into your restaurant time and time again. And that could be once a week, once a month, a couple of times a year, but it's that repeat revenue. And you want to be the place that they think of when they have a special occasion coming up. You want to be the reliable spot that they take their out of town friends to. You want to be that spot that they take their children to, their grandchildren to. So they are then joining your venue, their friends, their families. It's one of those things where the little decisions that you make and the way that you handle complaints and the way that you deliver your service can compound into the greater community and can end up being a great revenue source for your business. This is essentially the art of hospitality. So I know that this is nothing that's going to be new to you, but that specific way of dealing with complaints and ensuring that your management and that your team leaders and that your front of house team are dealing with these effectively and efficiently is just going to change the way that your front of house system works. It's going to open communication. If you are able to give your team the procedures and empower them with methods to deal with complaints and issues that they're going to be receiving in venue, those common complaints and issues, so things such as dishes not arriving on time, menu items not being put through the POS system, allergies and dietaries not being accounted for, which is something that really should be, lots and lots of training should be done on this. Whatever it is, whatever's happened, it's a table they don't like, they wanted a window seat when there's a view, they didn't get one. Whatever it is that is commonplace in your venue, your team should have a manual and a procedure of dealing with those common complaints. Give them the words that they can or cannot say. Give them some structure, give them a procedure, and give them an escalation technique. So if a situation occurs where there's a complaint or issue and it's escalating, they can then pass it on to the person that is going to be the most adept at dealing with that. For example, a supervisor or a manager. If you are dealing with guests who are out of line, there is definitely a boundary there, and that should also be in place, and your team should be aware of the boundaries that we also have on our audience, on our guests. Because at the end of the day, our teams need to know that we've got their backs, that we're going to take care of them in a situation where a guest is acting unruly. This is a small amount of people, but it has happened. I've seen it happen. There are also, the rude people. We work in customer service. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need to explain that to you. But methods and ways for your team to be able to deal with these people and to deal with rude actions is something that is going to benefit them so much. It's something that's going to empower them in dealing with the situations, not just in your restaurant, but actually on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to give you confidence in your team to know that you've given them the information that they need to be able to run the show. I personally love a little evening debrief or a little end of shift debrief. So just needs to be a couple of minutes. All it needs to be is, and it becomes a routine. So at the end of the shift, They come, they let you know if there were any issues. You write it down, you have your report, you make sure that it's there, you make sure that it's there, your management team makes sure that it's there so that it is in writing and that it can be looked at potentially on a daily basis, weekly basis, whereby you can then collect that data and ensure that these issues do not keep happening on a regular basis. If you can avoid these issues from happening, you won't need to be dealing with conflict management or complaint management as often as you may be dealing with now. If there's a break in communication between what your guest is telling your front of house team and that information making its way to yourself, how are you going to improve your service? And how do you know what the fuck is actually going on out there? I know front of house training and dealing with service issues often gets put on the back burner. It is something that I have personally done in the past and I've seen the negative effects that it has. What you do now and what you implement in your restaurant and the training that you give your team now is going to only better your venue in the months to come. It's a compounding effect. Once again, consistency is going to bring you results. If you are not consistently training your team and you think that one training a year is going to be efficient in making your customer service journey absolutely epic and bringing in more revenue, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's just not the case. It needs to be consistent and you need to make it a priority. I know things come up, cost of goods, back of house, it's all happening. I have given you proven techniques. I'm going to give you proven techniques that are actually going to give you the tools that you need to work with your front of house team in ensuring that you are receiving the feedback that they get, but also ensuring that they have the tools that they need to be able to deal with customer complaints and really keep that feedback response flow open and rolling consistently. I'm sure you can probably tell already, but I'm super passionate about this, and I really think that a lot of venues that I walk into are missing this one key piece. And it's just something that's so simple that you can really utilize and that can really open up your team as well into being more supportive of one another and opening up those communication barriers and that respect for those teammates for each other, their respect for you as a manager and an owner, and also your respect for them in being able to deal with the situations adequately on their own. Your guests are going to respect the honesty and the ability to deal with a difficult situation in a calm, concise, productive way. And if you see those guests coming back into your venue, it's such an achievement. Some of my best regulars over the years have been people that have perhaps had an unfortunate situation or didn't have the best start to a dining experience in a venue that I was working at, and have ended up becoming regulars and bringing their families and friends and coming sometimes on a regular basis. I had one situation where I had a couple, they had a very, very long wait time between their meals and they then received the wrong meals, and it was a bit of a disaster. It was just one of those everything's going wrong kind of services, and they came back and they ended up dining in that venue for twice a week for the next year that I was working there. So it's something that really you can implement and it really can make a difference, and it's not something that is difficult. It's going to take a little bit of time in training your team. Take an extra few minutes each briefing. If you're briefing your team, take that extra time. Ensure that they're taking an extra couple of minutes at the end of their shift or before they finish their clock off to come and see you. Give them that time to come and see you and be able to talk about the service and the experiences that they've had during that service so that you have a better idea of what's going on. If at the end of the day, the least that you can do is if at the end of the day, the least that's going to happen is you're able to say, we've dealt with this in the best way possible and we've dealt with this in a way that we feel we can be proud of, and can be self-assured that we tried our best to turn this experience around for our guests. If they're still not happy, then you can at least be confident in how you and your team approach the situation, and that's all you can ask for at the end of the day. And that then comes around to the integrity of your venue and being able to stand by your values and have your team believe in that as well. When your team know that you have their back and they're believing in the service that you're putting out and that you actually give a shit about the experience that your guests are receiving, then they're going to give a shit too. And they're going to be wanting to give the best service that they possibly can. Everyone benefits from this. You benefit from an increased revenue stream, and your team potentially benefit from an increased number in their tips at the end of the week. There's potentially more work available when you start to see an increase of guests walking through the door, more shifts available. It's just a flow-on effect that is only positive for everybody involved. So for you to be able to implement this, it's really, in my opinion, an absolute no-brainer. I've put everything together in a mini book. It's a step-by-step guide of all the techniques that I've used over the years that have really proven to work with my front of house teams. It even has an additional resource where I've provided ways that you can say things, provide that to your team, give that to your team, methods that they can use, how they can approach a conversation, words that they can use, how active listening and empathy is so important when dealing with guests and complaints and issues. I go into that in quite a lot of detail because those two simple skills is something that is not, once again, going to benefit them just in venue, but also from a life experience perspective. Actively listening to your guests is essentially the basis of what I've been talking about, and showing that empathy and using specific body language, using a tone of voice, gestures, words to acknowledge and address a guest who may be in distress or who may be having an unfortunate experience is really going to change the game in how that situation unfolds and the potential end of that situation and how we can rectify it. So all the details are in the link. You can go and have a read if you're interested. I focus on front of house, in venue. I've got resources for your team there as well. However, I also do touch on, once people do leave the venue and they're complaining via email or you're getting bad reviews, how to deal with that as well, because that is also a part of conflict and complaint management, especially in this age where some people do love to, get on their keyboard and complain that way. So how to deal with that. I know that time is precious, so there's no BS, there's no fluff. I've just popped everything into a step-by-step guide. I have focused on front of house service and dealing with complaints and issues, the feedback response flow specifically. However, I also go into email, online reviews, and how to deal with those complaints and issues as well, because that's something that we definitely see more often than we used to back in the day. So yeah, have a little look. I think it's an epic resource. I think it's great. It's easy to implement. It's something that you can just pass on to your team. You can build your structures, your procedures, systems, implement them. You will see results from the first week that you implement them. And if you do, I can guarantee you seeing an increase in return guests from complaints or issues that may arise during your service. And I really believe that it's going to benefit your team in bringing your team closer and forming a positive workplace for everybody involved. So click the link, have a look.